This happened back in March, right at the beginning of the COVID outbreak in the USA. So me, 18 and female, and my boyfriend Jordan went to Walmart for some quarantine shopping. You know, stuff to keep ourselves entertained, basic health supplies, and most importantly, aromatherapy materials for me. Something important to this shopping trip is that I have extremely high anxiety and a bit of a paranoia disorder from abuse that I suffered as a child. This is important to note for two reasons. One, it's the reason I went to the candle section in the first place, as I use aromatherapy to help my anxiety. And two, with my paranoia, I often downplay dangerous situations in my head because I make myself think that I'm overreacting when I'm not. And now, on with the story. As Jordan and I are walking through Walmart, I thought I noticed a guy trailing us. I thought nothing of it and chalked it up to me being paranoid and decided not to tell Jordan, which I would later regret. Despite my internal decision that I was just being paranoid, I decided to test my theory and told Jordan that I wanted to go look at the stickers. We went into the sticker aisle and the guy walked past, looking at us as he did. After the guy was out of sight, I broke down crying. Not wanting to alarm Jordan, I told him that the virus was just really stressing me out. Jordan calmed me down and we went on our way to the candles. As I was looking for my different scents that I would need to help myself get through quarantine, Jordan decided to go look at some hardware nearby for some projects that he was going to work on during his quarantine. We didn't quarantine together. I thought nothing of it and decided that I would just stay by the candles until he got back because I can be a bit of a wanderer and didn't want to cause more stress than necessary. Not more than 10 seconds after Jordan walked away, I felt a pair of eyes on me. Something in my gut told me that it was the same guy from before, but I was too scared to turn around and check for myself. I stood there frozen in panic for about 30 seconds when I hear footsteps approaching from directly behind me. They come towards me, stop for a moment, and then I hear them walking away. Then they turn around and I hear them approaching me once more and stopping a few feet behind me. This entire time, I can't see who is behind me because I'm just paralyzed. After about 2 minutes, Jordan finally comes back and gently wraps one arm around my waist, giving me a knowing look. We decided we were done shopping. Even though we didn't have everything we needed, we checked out and went home. Later, Jordan told me that he had noticed the guy following us earlier and he watched the guy standing about 5 to 6 feet behind me as I was looking at the candles, and that the guy was just staring at me. The guy walked closer to me and noticed Jordan looking at him and changed course to look like he was going to a different aisle. Then when he thought Jordan had left, he walked even closer to me, standing about 4 feet behind me, again, just staring. That's when Jordan decided that this guy was up to something and came back by me. I'm so thankful that I had Jordan there with me because who knows what could have happened if he wasn't there. And to the guy who followed me and stared at me in Walmart, let's not meet.
This happened to me when I was at elementary school. It would usually take me about 30 minutes to walk home from school. On the way home, there was 2 sets of traffic lights on a big 2-lane road. My school was by the seaside. I loved it. I used to walk in a group of close friends of about 3 or 4. We used to chat about the latest fads and fashion, homework, that sort of thing. It was a really fun time for me when I think back on it. It was summertime in my 3rd year of elementary school. As usual, I was waiting for my friends outside in the playground after school had finished. I noticed an old man in a white car staring at me through his open window. At first I thought he was a child because he was very short and very petite. He was so sunken in his seat I could barely see him. Not to mention, he had his cap pulled down just above his eyes. I remember that the cap had a logo on it. His skin was slightly sunburned too. He looked to be about 40 or 50 years old. He fully rolled down his window, leaned over the passenger seat and called out, "Hi! I'm sorry to tell you, but your dad has been involved in an accident. He's been rushed to the hospital. I'm one of your dad's friends, and I'm here to take you to see him in the hospital." Of course, when you hear something as terrible as that, it's going to shock you. But I had never met this old man before. When you're younger and an adult tells you to get in a car, you listen, right? Especially when they say something like that. I didn't know what to do. What was I supposed to do right now? My legs were frozen solid. It was at this point one of my friends arrived. I began to tell her about what I had just heard from the old man in the car, but our conversation was interrupted. "Hurry up, your dad's waiting for you," ordered the old man in the white car. My friend and I said nothing. "Your dad asked me to come and get you," he called. Those words upset me. I didn't know him, but I was so worried about my dad. I was only in the 3rd year of elementary school. I was so confused and very wary of the situation. Something in my gut told me that this was very dangerous. This standoff between us and the old man in the car went on for about 10 minutes. It was agonizing. Until he said, "Fine, don't get in. I hope your dad forgives you." He rolled up the window and started the car, drove off. I watched that car driving away. I had conflicting feelings of guilt for not accepting the ride with him to see my father in the hospital, yet I had strongly felt that it was not safe. After a while, my friend and I decided to head home as usual. I was nervous all the way home as we walked along the seafront. I got home and spoke to my mother about what had just happened. She confirmed that the creepy old man was a liar. She reported this to my school and to the police. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I am so glad you didn't get in that man's car." The next day at school, all the students were gathered and given a warning about this strange man and told about what had happened to me. The teacher explained that if you see an older man wearing a cap in a white car and he tells you that a family member or a friend has gotten into an accident and he will take you to the hospital, do not believe him and get away from him as fast as possible. I found out at a later date that a child had gone missing not too far from our school, and the child's whereabouts were unknown. It was said that the child had been tricked into getting into a stranger's car, and the police were currently conducting an investigation. I do not know how that case ended, but I do pray that the child was returned safely and the perpetrator was arrested. I mean, what would have happened to me if I had gotten in that car? I'm much older now, but I think about this often. And when I do, I always break out in goosebumps.
This happened on a time span of a couple of years when I was 15 to 16. There was this guy in the locker room of the gym who was about 30 to 35 years old and constantly sat next to me when we were in the room at the same time. It started with some chat, nothing wrong, but he had a strangely chill voice and I didn't like the way he looked at me. Then he started asking questions about more personal stuff, such as where I went to school or what I did in my free time. At some point, he asked where I lived, and I told him a totally different place, far from my actual home, but still plausible given the distance from the gym, and he kept asking for details. It was mostly annoying because he had never ever laid a finger on me, and I wasn't physically scared of him, being taller and potentially stronger, but it creeped me out for a while. At some point, he tried to approach me in the cafeteria, but I just ignored him, despite him calling me, "Hey kid," even in front of a friend of mine who was aware of the situation. At some point, he just disappeared, but I still wonder what the heck he wanted from me.
This happened about 2 years into my life living alone as an adult female. I was working crazy hours. I wasn't getting enough sleep. It was pretty tough. I used to pretty much sleep all weekend, and then start it all again on Monday. So one weekday night, I got back home late, as usual. I took a bath. Took a look at the time. It was already past midnight. After the bath, I thought I'd better go to the toilet before going to sleep. When I think back to this, I remember at this moment, I felt something was off. You know that feeling when you think something is out of place? I was doing my thing in there, and I was about to get up and leave, when I saw something that made me freeze in place. There's a gap between the floor and the door of about a couple of centimeters, maybe about an inch in height. I saw a shadow pass in front of the door. I thought, because I was tired, maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But a moment or two later, it happened again. I couldn't explain it. There was nothing in the hallway that could cast a shadow back and forth, and I wasn't living with anyone. It happened a third time. Chills raced up my spine. I pressed my ear to the door. I couldn't hear any movement, only a dull hum, like a kind of noise, which I guessed was the ventilation fan in the kitchen. Hang on a second. That's not the fan. I didn't even put it on. When I listened closer, I could hear that it was the sound of someone breathing. There was someone stood in front of the toilet. I was panicking. I knew it wasn't the thick door. My heart was beating fast and I began to sweat. I thought there was a thief out there, but my thoughts drifted towards the paranormal. I had no idea. My brain was full of images from horror films. I didn't know what I could do. I just curled up as far away from the door as possible and kept silent. A shadow occasionally passed back and forth. What did this thing or person want, I wondered. Then suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the light in the toilet was cut. A whimper of fear just escaped out of me. I backed myself up as far as I could in the toilet, and cocked my fist back, trying my best to prepare myself, to at least put up a fight against this intruder. I was shaking with adrenaline and fear. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness as I stared at the door. The doorknob slowly started to turn. They were trying to open the door. I grabbed onto the handle with both hands and put all my strength into keeping the door closed. The door handle began to violently turn in my hands. I held on as best I could. Whoever was trying to get in was incredibly strong. I knew I needed to take one hand off the door handle to lock the toilet door, but would I have the strength to keep this person out, one-handed? I whipped my left hand onto the lock and scrabbled to lock it. The most satisfying sound I think I've ever heard. Then the doorknob ceased shaking. My apartment went back to silence. I froze in place. Sweat was dripping down my forehead. Still silence filled my apartment. Did you give up? I thought. I stood as still as possible for I guess about 15 minutes, and I didn't hear another sound. Was it safe to come out now? I had no confidence in that decision. I thought I'd check the crack of the door to see if there was still a shadow there, but it was pitch black. I wanted to see if someone was out there. I had to. I got down on the floor and put my head near the crack. I was terrified. I lined my eyes up with the gap and saw a pair of eyes peering back at me. I just remained silent, unsure what else I could have done. I didn't leave the toilet. I couldn't. I just had to stay there. I didn't have a phone, so I couldn't call the cops. It was just a waiting game. If whoever was out there wanted to get in, they could have probably done it by now, I thought. I was so exhausted I caught some micro-sleep leaning against the toilet. I woke up to sunlight filtering through the gap in the door. I was thinking that whoever was out there was gone. And I had to get to work. I couldn't stay in the fucking toilet for the rest of my life. So I threw the door open. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and checked my apartment out. No one was there. My cupboards and drawers had been ransacked, but I don't think anything had been taken. Maybe one of my bags? Or some underwear. It was a horrible situation. In the end, I decided to take the day off, and I started apartment hunting. I still have no idea how they got in. Maybe, in my tired state, I didn't lock the door or something. Please, guys, stay safe. I think I had a narrow miss here.
I'm a female. Also, I'm not a native speaker, so please forgive me if I make any grammar mistakes. This is my story from 2019 and 2020 when I started going to high school. I was 16 at that time, and I met Tom by my classmate, who was a goth. He had his own band and all, and everyone considered him as the type of person who is dangerous. Though, to be honest, he was the sweetest person that I have ever met, so I didn't really verify what kind of vibe Tom, his guitarist, was giving me off. I just assumed that if my friend was sweet, his friends must be sweet too, which in most cases was the truth, right? Tom was shorter than me. I'm 5'7", so it's not that uncommon in my case. And he had really long blonde hair, and because of that, many people has misgendered him. He was nice and funny, though he wasn't exactly the type of person with whom I'm hanging out with. Most of my friends are loud extroverts with a lot of energy and even more memes saved on their phones. Me, my friend, and Tom were going to the same school. So when I was talking with my friend, Tom was usually there too. After some time, me and Tom started to spend more time alone, and he somehow became one of my friends. Please mark that I have told him a lot of times about my crush, so he definitely knew that I was interested in someone else. Time has flew by, and my best friend started noticing that Tom was evidently interested in me. I just laughed it off and didn't think much of it. Me and Tom? Come on, guys. Though I didn't believe them, I wanted to make sure that Tom knows what kind of intentions I have towards him. So despite the fact that I'm a really cuddly and friendly person, I tried to not show him so much attention anymore. Months flew by, and here February came in. Despite the fact that my friends have told me about some red flags, that he was watching me, and that he magically appeared everywhere we went, and that he followed us around, I, again, so naive and dumb, thought that it was established for good, that we are just friends. No need to say, my friends were not big fans of him. So, when he invited me for shopping after school, I was like, yeah, sure. The day before, he had texted me about how he was excited for going out and many more, and offered me a lift home after. I've told him that no, that I'm okay with the bus, because I live in the next town, not too near, not too far. But he insisted. He was so persistent in giving me a lift home that my naive, though aggressive and assertive ass texted him, "Bitch, you right? I'll give you a ride home one more time, and we're not going anywhere." So he finally stopped. I really hate guys who don't take no for an answer, and it was definitely the case here. The meeting was nice, but weird. You know, around 15 minutes after we got to the shopping center, I knew he wanted something more. I'm naive, not blind. So after some awkward time, I said that I gotta go. I have went to the bus stop, and he wanted to walk me there, and that was about it. At least, that's what I thought. He got on the bus with me, because apparently he was going the same way. I knew that he lived in the other part of the city, but maybe he needed to do something there. Though I knew that something was off, so I have got off the bus a few stops before mine and called my mom. He got off too. I asked him why he was following me, and he said that he wants to make sure that I'm getting home safely. Yeah, what the fuck, dude? Do you think it's fucking romantic? I told him to go home, but he was persistent. I've told him that yesterday I've texted him that I'm okay with coming home alone. And he said, "But you are coming home by yourself. What's the problem?" Now, I'm literally scared and really uncomfortable. I have read way too many true scary stories from Let's Not Meet and Creepy Encounters, and I got that feeling on my spine that his intentions are not pure. It was getting dark, and I was alone with him in the middle of nowhere, and he started to make his move. In this moment, I started being more annoyed of him than scared. I'm a tall, sporty girl with a fucking blue belt and after boxing classes, so if he tried something, I would beat the shit out of him. At least my voice is really loud and I scream louder than an ambulance. Then I remembered my, dangerous meeting with some old creep who wanted to do you know what. But he failed, don't worry about that. So I stood there frozen for the first 10 seconds and I couldn't even move or make a noise. So I decided it wasn't necessarily the best place to turn him down, so we just waited silently. I would have definitely feel more safe alone than with him. He started touching my back and my hair and etc. And when I asked him to stop, he said, "Ah, you're so cute when you're angry." Dude, no means no. I've told him that, and he started making monologues about how girls always say no, but they mean yes. No, they don't. And then it was so dark that I had to turn my flashlight on. He asked me if I was cold. I said that no, but apparently we're talking about a guy who doesn't take no for an answer. And so he hugged me tightly. I tried to push him away, but then I remember that night when I was almost, what I said earlier, and again, I was frozen. I felt him sniffing my hair and neck. His hands were tightly hugging me. He was way stronger than I thought, and I felt his slow breath on my skin. You really are perfect," he said after a while with changed voice. It was deep. I felt like a rabbit caught by a fox. I laughed hysterical and started crying, but he was still holding and sniffing me. When my mom came, I've run to her car, and she is thankfully parked away from the bus stop, so he couldn't ask himself to my home, even if he'd wanted. When I got home, I started crying my eyes out. I thought it was over after that, and I have definitely limited acquaintance with him. He still was a friend of a friend, so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And then lockdown came in, so I thought that the problem was solved. Notice that I have alarmed my mom about this, but she said that he just likes you. And, oh, come on, boys will be boys. So I was alone with my problem. He was calling me a few times per day, and when I asked him why, no, I wasn't answering calls. He texted me that he wanted to talk because he missed my voice. As a dumb bitch I was, I thought that ignoring him will make him stop, and surprisingly, it worked. At least the texts and the calls stopped. When we came back in September, he was acting like in September a year ago. A pure, nice, shy dude. My goth friend was expelled from school at that time, and we kind of lost contact, so I couldn't talk about Tom with him. Maybe Tom just acts this way. I don't know. I know some clingy people who would totally do the same things as Tom, but with the purest intentions. Yes, I am a naive dumb bitch. And then the lunch break came. After everyone from our table left, only me and Tom stayed. I eat rather slow and he was drinking his juice. It's a nice thing we finish the lessons at the same time at Thursdays. He said, we can hang out then. Maybe go ice skating when the winter will come. Or have some sushi or something. What? First of all, my school has a private lesson plan for each class, so you can't just check it on the website. The teacher needs to send it to you. Plus, I didn't give it to him. So how the fuck did he know? Second of all, I love ice skating. I've told him that a year ago, the day that we met. How did he remember? And finally, I have never told him that I like sushi. Why would he ask me to go there if he wasn't sure that I liked it? A lot of people hate sushi. Even I eat it only occasionally with my friends. And then, it hit me. My friend told me that he was following us. He knew I like sushi because he saw us eating it, probably several times. Or maybe I have told him after all and just forgot. I tried to make an excuse for him, but I started to feel so scared that I couldn't move. Yeah, I answered awkwardly, trying to make my voice sound normal. How do you know? He started to look a little bit uncomfortable and changed the subject. Okay, this is way too suspicious. I have told my best friends about it, and one of them, Hannah, said, "Oh my God, yes, I remember now." After that, I thought that she, for some reason, had sent it to him, so I felt relieved. I have met him today at the principal's office. He was taking our class plan. I thought it was pretty weird too. I wanted to tell you this since you guys are friends and all, but I forgot. Sorry about that. He what? Okay, now, if he wanted to be friends, he would just ask me about it. And if he knew that I wouldn't give it to him, why is he so persistent? Okay, we need to get this clear. My friends thought the same. I confronted him a few days later, and I have told him that we can't be more than friends ever. I like someone else, and I don't have romantic feelings towards him. Of course, I said all of those in a nicer way. After my monologue, he was just standing there, and after a while he said, "I knew about it." He looked at me. "You did like my touch though. I saw you liked it. So why are you acting like this?" I've told him that I didn't, and it made me very uncomfortable. That even then I tried to push him away, but I couldn't. And if a girl says no, she means no. "Well," he said, "it seems like I'm stronger than you after all." Good thing to know. Well, be happy that I won't use it on you. You're too pretty. We just stood there, me in shock, and he just looking at my reaction. And then my next class started, so I went away. When I've looked back, he was still standing there with this blank expression on his face. Then he looked up and our eyes met. He seemed sad and angry, and after that, we stopped talking for a while. Though I could see him in very weird places staring at me, like in a building where I trained karate, or my bus stop. He never took this bus stop. He lives in a completely different direction, but also, this stopped after some time. But here, my so-called best friend, Hannah, turns in. She became friends with him, knowing what kind of relationship me and him had. I was trying to tell her to stop asking him to hang out with us, but she didn't care. Also, every time that our choir needed music help, she texted him to help us. Aw, come on, Asia. That's my name. He's so good with a guitar, and he can totally help us. The second lockdown had come in, and I don't know what to expect when I'll come back. The worst part is that I know that he's a good person. He will get over his feelings. At least, I hope so. But I think it's just cruel for Hannah to ask him to hang out with me and her Because then, it looks like I asked her to do it, to play with his feelings or use him. I know that she likes him. Also, not in a romantic way as far as I know. But, come on girl, don't do this to me. Can't you hang out with him alone? I don't know what to do. I will also keep updating if something happens, which I highly doubt so. We haven't spoken in half a year and he acts normal. We texted just once to share each other's experiences about the musical that I have recommended him in September. But I'm happy I had ended it before something bad happened. And I hope that nothing bad will happen too. Tom, I know that we will meet again. So let's just meet as normal friends with nothing more to it.
About 7 or 8 years ago, I was living alone in the Chiba countryside, going back and forth to university. My apartment was on the second floor, and it was tiny, narrow, and a dirty place, but I liked it at the time. It was fine for me. I met a guy at uni and we started dating. It was a good time. About half a year passed. I was living next door to a good-looking office lady. I noticed one day that someone had left a strange-looking note on the small window next to her front door. Let me explain. In the hallway of the building at the top of the stairs, there's a frosted window that belongs to her apartment, at about head height on the right-hand side. About 70 centimeters by 40 centimeters. My boyfriend said, "What's that about? Maybe we should ask her next time we see her." I asked her about it, and she said she didn't know who had put that on her window. She said late one night she had decided to have a little peek through the window, and the second she looked out, a face appeared. It really freaked her out. It frightened me too. She said she stays at her boyfriend's apartment most nights now. I mentioned to her, if she ever didn't feel safe, or if anything happened, knock on the wall and let me know. I told my boyfriend that too, and he said that he would come straight away to help. I chatted with her in passing, time to time, and she said things had gotten worse. She was planning on moving out of the apartment block, and eventually she did. That's when things started happening to me. When I was home alone, in times where I would be doing nothing but lying on my bed, I would hear this metallic tapping sound against my door. Since my apartment is tiny, you can easily see the door from the bed. Once, when I was looking over, I saw the door handle gently turning, as if someone was trying to quietly open the door. I didn't know who it was or what was going on. Keep calm, I told myself. For some reason, I called out, "The door's locked!" I heard heavy thuds against the door. They shook the glasses in the kitchen cabinets. Now I was freaked out. The thudding stopped eventually. Was someone trying to break in? So I called the police, and they offhandedly told me to beef up my security. That doesn't really solve the problem though. Something else happened. Again when I was on my own in there. I remember that it was the end of January. Someone was trying to open the door again, but this time, a lot more violently. My whole body went rigid. Thank God I locked the door. Somehow, I found the courage to creep over to the door. I wanted to get a look at the person who was doing this. Someone was stood on the other side of the door. It was a guy. He had a bucket hat pulled way down to cover his eyes. My skin broke out in goosebumps. I was terrified. I wanted to get as far away from the door as possible, but that wasn't easy to do in my tiny apartment. I ran to the other side of the room and called the police again, sobbing uncontrollably into the phone. Are they still there? Can you go over to the door and check again? Are they angry, do you think? The cop said. That really made my blood boil. Are you for real? Can't you hear the banging? I tried to keep my composure and not go off on him, and did as he requested. I looked through the peephole again, and the man at the door was still there, which sent me into a panic again. Even though there was a police station 5 minutes from my house, the policeman told me it was out of his jurisdiction. I pleaded with the guy, and he said he would send someone over to look over my place. They showed up 40 minutes later. Luckily, I called my boyfriend. He came from his part-time job. He arrived long before the police. He caught me on the phone to them, and asked the officer, "Does she have to be dead before you come and check it out?" I half smiled at this, but the reality hit home. The person who was trying to break into my apartment was long gone. It's true, in Japan, the police won't do a thing until someone dies. I hate the police here. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just how I feel. The third time something happened, my boyfriend was in the apartment with me, thankfully. We were washing dishes in the kitchen and drinking tea. He suddenly felt a chill, and I felt it too. Then we both asked at the same time, "Are you cold?" He then asked me if a window was open. I looked in the direction of the window near my bed and saw it was open a crack. Then, I saw one human eye staring right at me. We must have stared at each other for about 10 seconds. I tapped my boyfriend's shoulder. I was too scared to speak. My boyfriend understood the message and ran towards the window, chasing after whoever was staring at us. However, that creep had a mountain bike positioned ready down below my window and got away. We couldn't have got down the stairs quick enough to chase him, living on the second floor and all. I saw him speeding away as I looked down from the corridor. One of the fence posts below my window had been broken, which is probably how he was able to climb up to the window. By the way, my bathroom is near the door of my apartment. Since it's a tiny place like I said before, I always had to make a short naked run to my dressing room across the hall. Which makes me think that is why the guy had broken the fence and fashioned a ledge to stand on and peer at me. It's my guess anyway. It made my skin crawl. I applied for other apartments immediately after that incident. Also, shortly after this had happened, my boyfriend and I broke up. We didn't have a big falling out or anything, it just kind of fizzled out. I was glad that we were able to move on without any hard feelings, to be honest. We decided to split up over coffee one evening. He said he had to tell me something before we parted ways though. He told me that he thought the guy who had been messing with me had been doing the same to the woman who lived next door to me, like a kind of stalker. I kind of already guessed that, to be honest. I was joking, trying to lighten the mood by saying, "I lost a boyfriend, but I gained a stalker." He went deathly quiet. "I was really scared when that guy was staring at us in your room that night. There was something I didn't tell you, which I probably should have told you," he said. "When I saw that guy getting on his bike, I noticed a huge knife in his hand." I am so glad he was there at the time that creep came. Who knows what would have happened if he wasn't. I was able to move out, and my ex even helped me. He said I could call him any time I was frightened, but I haven't been scared once in my new place. What was the purpose of that guy messing with me? What did he want? To rob me? Was he a stalker? Or was he planning on doing something a lot worse? I think about it all the time. I don't ever want to be in that neighborhood again. Thinking now, that metallic tapping sound I heard against the door could have been the knife my ex mentioned. I don't like to think about that kind of stuff at nighttime. In case you're wondering, the apartment is still there.
Hi, please do check out my friend Jay Nightmares. He's an awesome narrator, and the coolest thing about him is that his stories are from Japan. He translates all of these by himself. So check him out, you won't regret it. The link to his channel is in the description of the video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I would also like to thank my following patrons: Fire05, Gabriel, Maskino, Ralph, Lori, and Jake. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel further, you can be a patron too. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.